with the Village of Vernon Hills. Tonight is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The time is 7:34, and we will start with a roll call. Chairman Morris? Commissioner Blue?
Present.
Commissioner Cotton?
Here.
Commissioner Hesner?
Here.
Commissioner Heidner?
Here.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Here.
Commissioner Gorog? We do have a quorum. Unfortunately, our chairman is unable to attend this evening's meeting. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to appoint a chairperson for the evening.
I would like to make a motion that Commissioner Heidner be the chairman for this evening.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion properly seconded. We'll now do roll call. Commissioner Blue?
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorog? Chairman Morris? Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is case 18-2, which is a petition filed by Tatiana Jenagog, pardon me if I mispronounce it, of Mundelein, requesting a special use permit to operate a child's recreation facility with hourly drop-off childcare facilities within the enclosed retail shopping mall, and the business will be known as Sophia and Friends Fun Place. And it's proposed for 122 Hawthorne Center, unit number 501. If the petitioner would like to come forward, please.
Good evening.
If you'll identify yourself first, please.
Yeah, first.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Genega. I am president of the company, Sophia and Friends. This is my partner.
Stephen Bourbon. I'm business partner for Tatiana, and if you let me, I will do this presentation.
And just 1 second before we do that, this is a public hearing.
Yes.
If you'll raise your right hand, do you promise that the testimony you present today is the whole truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So she's nervous. I will, if you let me, I will lead the whole presentation, okay? First, we appreciate your time, but I will try to be very brief and to go to details how we see this, for us, very interesting business proposal. First, I want to start from priority for us, and not only for us, it's safety, because it's children. We are planning to have basically two groups of children, 2 to 5 years old and 5 to 12 years old, okay? So, and I will try to describe how we see these safety requirements, how we will meet all safety requirements. First, surely it will be restricted area with gates, and children cannot leave this area without parents. It will be gate, and upon arrival, surely we will check ID, parents' ID. We will copy driver license. We will put in the computer name, parent name, kid's name, age, phone number, and each children will have sticker, and we will take picture in order to identify to identify parent and children, because sticker can fall out or they can change. So every child will be photographed with picture and attached to a parent's ID, driver license, okay? All this information will be in the computer, and surely we will take phone number, cell phone of parent. Our requirement for parents, don't leave mall. So this is a requirement. They cannot leave the mall. Time. For children 2 to 5 years old, maximum 2 hours, maximum. For older children, maximum 3 hours. Very important that we will restrict number of children on premises, 15 maximum. If we will have 15 children, we assume on Saturday and Sunday, it will be minimum 3 employees for 15 children. So it's 5 children per 1 employee. So in terms of safety, I think surely cameras will be on premises, okay? Working all the time. Hours. We're planning hours from Monday to Saturday, from 10 to 9, and on Sundays from 11 maybe to 6, 7. It will be shortened on Sundays. Surely, when mall is not open, we are not working, okay? So this is one area of safety. Another area of our concern, and not our concern, is employees. So we're planning to have qualified employees, surely with CPR certification, and we require minimum 3 references for employees. So our hiring process will be very, very tight, okay? Because for us, it's very important. Currently, now we already have 2 employees who agreed to work with us. We did background check. Background check, surely it will be absolutely necessary. We don't expect that criminal checks will be violated or something. So surely background check will be very rigorous. So now we have 2 employees, and we interviewed several others, and I hope that if you will let us go to with this project, we will hire 30 employees. It will be minimum requirement 3 employees for this business. For us, it's very high priority. Who will work with children? Now, we will have a bathroom inside, so we don't need to accompany a kid out of premises. So there's a bathroom. No food will be allowed, only drink, only water and some, basically it's water, okay? But another important, I think, what we offer to our customers, that surely parents can stay within this premises. It's a good big place. It's 2,500 square feet. It's a big place for 15 kids. It's a lot of space, okay? So we will let, surely if parents want to stay with kids, especially with small kids, surely they will stay with kids. Now, entertainment. We consider this business or this our proposal that we will provide maximum interest for children, okay? So it will be surely professional, not influence, but environment to give kids as much as possible interest, okay? So one of employees, what we already hired, if, again, you will let us start with business, one employee is a former professional dancer. So I'm sure that kids will be very interested in this quality of employee. Another, it's dancing surely more maybe for girls than for boys, but again, it's former professional dancer. We will concentrate on not just kids having fun, but maybe we will surely give a lot of books on these premises. We will try to we will put all efforts to see very joyful kids on these premises, okay? I don't want to describe everything what we will offer to kids, but I want to make sure that it will be not just play. We will try to make for these kids not just fun, but some educational experience, something interesting for them for developments, okay? So, and another employee, what we talked about with higher education, with master degree in education, and we hope that this lady will help us in, again, development of big interest for kids. What will be inside? It's we will have a castle for kids, maybe 2, 5, 6 years old. It's one area. Another area will be wall bars for older kids, and we will have trampoline. And another area with table with books and kids. And again, another area is for dancing, dancing lessons. Okay, what else? I think I covered most important topics, and I would be happy to answer your questions. But again, I can add something else, but I don't want to take a lot of your time. I hope that you understand the just general approach what we offer, and especially with safety. Again, we started thinking about this business from safety point, and now we think that we can provide complete 100% safety for kids and surely interest. So if you have questions, I would be happy to answer.
Anyone? Go ahead.
All right, I'll start. I have several concerns. First, you've mentioned safety. I guess my first question is, are you always going to have 3 people on premise? Or are there going to be fewer than, at any point, would there be fewer than 3?
In the beginning, surely it will be 3 employees in the beginning, okay? And maybe it's 3-4 months, because we have to see traffic, okay? So it will be minimum 3 employees on premises. Whether it's 2 kids or 5 kids or 10 kids, we don't know how it will work. When we will have statistics, okay? Probably, say, in the morning on weekdays, if we will see 1 or 2 or 3 kids, what we can do, minimum 2, it's for sure, on weekdays in the morning, okay? However, what we are planning, that all 3 employees will come on our first call. If, say, in the morning 2-3 hours, it's only 2 and 1-2 kids, there is nothing to do, okay? So we can let go 1, and but we will on the phone. If it will be, say, 10 kids on premises, always it will be 3, okay? So I understand your question. We will not make this business as economical as possible, okay?
No, I
We
understand.
will not, okay? Because we understand that on us, it's obligation to provide safety, okay? So this is obligation. We're obligated to have all kids under care. So, but again, several months, it will be 3 employees, and this is our plan. Independently, how many kids on premises. But what we think that we will make so interesting this place that we will have full capacity or almost, but we will not, again, exceed 15. 15, it's red line.
Okay. So what if you have 3 employees and you have 3 kids, let's say, and one of them is on the, or you have 5 kids, okay? And you have some kids on the wall, you have some kids in the castle, and you have some older kids. And let's say one of the kids is little and has to go to the restroom and needs to be accompanied. How are you going to handle that? Because now you have one area that's not covered. And
I
you also
understand.
have the front desk that's not covered.
But bathroom on premises.
I know it's on, but if you have a 3-year-old,
Right.
they can't go by themselves.
Yes,
usually.
yes. So if 3 employees, 1 with kid in bathroom, but 2 employees, it will be sufficient for.
Well, I mean,
the thing.
even if there's 10, kids, I mean, I would be concerned that one kid is monopolizing, one employee.
Right, right.
And then you also don't have someone at the front desk. So if you have 10 kids and someone comes in to check in another child, you have someone that has to leave again.
Okay,
And-
I understand you. Now, we're talking about 3 employees, but Tatiana will be there almost all the time.
Okay.
She's number 4,
Oh,
but she's not employees, she's owner. So it will be 3 employees plus Tatiana. So actually, 4 people will be on premises, but 3 employees, it's what we will hire. So actually, it's 4.
Okay, my next question, you have 2-year-olds. Many 2-year-olds are not potty trained. How is that allowed? I didn't think that was allowed without certification to change diapers.
Certification, now, Tatiana has, she's medical assistant. She has certificate of medical assistant, okay?
But there's there's other certifications for a daycare facility that,
For-
that need to be,
I understand. We thought about, no,
So
that's
one of
okay.
the things that's listed as a condition of approval here
Wh-
is that there is a requirement to make sure that all regulations as pertaining to DCFS are complied with. And there's additional conditions of approval about operation and manual that will be subject to review by the village to ensure that they are in compliance with all DCF regs. And while we ourselves are not experts on that, we certainly want to make sure that prior to any acceptance of operations, that they're up to speed on that. And that's something we anticipate working with them all quite a bit on, because I know when the last hourly drop-off was approved as part of the mall, many of the conditions of approval that are included in your packet this evening were taken directly from that to ensure that we're being consistent, but also because there's an understanding that there's additional regulations that will be required.
okay. My next,
But may I add something? What we thought that drop-off, surely we want and mall wants drop-off, because this is their business, you understand? Parents will spend some time and money in mall. Now, with 2, 3 years old, maybe 4, 2, 3 years old, we will recommend parents to stay. We will recommend parents to stay. We can provide this with bathroom, with all these regulations, but When we will see that kid 2, 3 years old, we will ask parent, please stay.
Oh, that, okay.
But they can leave surely for a short period of time.
Okay.
Why,
Now,
why would the parents want to stay if they're really dropping their children off so that they can go shop?
Right. No, this is our recommendation, but they will go shopping, and with this time when they will go shopping, we will recommend as minimum time as possible go shopping. Don't do for 2 hours, okay? So I think that all parents will comply with our request
okay, if a child is very unhappy, you said that you would notify the parents?
immediately.
Okay, how are you going to notify the parents?
We will have a cell phone.
Cell phone?
Cell phone and computer, immediately we will contact a parent and they should come back.
There are areas in the mall that the cell phones do not work. There are also, if somebody goes to see a movie for 2 hours, as an example, AMC is in the mall,
Yes.
their cell phone has to be turned off. How would you handle that situation? I mean, you can't regulate where they go in the mall if you're saying they can stay in the mall.
I would suggest that parents will comply with our request. Don't go to movie.
But even in some of the even in some of the stores in the mall and the areas within the mall, cell phone reception is questionable at best. I know that I've tried to reach my own children at the mall and cannot get through.
As far as I know, cell phones in this mall are working. We checked. In all
Not
areas.
everywhere.
In all areas, we checked many times. It's working. Other than that, you give me a good idea. We will ask parent where they supposed to be, in what area they will shop. If for some reason cell phone is not working, we will know this. You give me a good idea. We will ask parents where's it's Victoria's Secret or some men's stores or where they or Macy's, what store they will be. Maybe it's a good idea to ask him. But again, we checked cell phones, and we talked to, by the way, to a manager at mall, and she said that cell phones are working.
In some areas, they work very well. In other areas, not so much. That's been our experience.
Yeah, but again, we talked to manager, and she said that we talked about it. But in addition, again, maybe it's a good idea if we will put in computers, we will be in Macy's or or in JCPenney.
And then my last question.
Yes.
If you have a parent that loses track of time and you have a 1 to 2 hour limit for the younger children.
Yes,
And,
no more
you
than
know,
two.
a 2 to 3 hour limit, if someone loses track of time and has a 3-year-old and is gone for more than 2 hours, how are you going to handle it?
Immediately call. We will call small children. We will call maybe 15, 20 minutes before expiration time. No. We will follow strictly time.
That's one of the conditions of approval is, I mean, there's going to need to be a way to address this, and that's why it's part of the special use, because if they are themselves not, you know, abiding by their policy, or they're not keeping track of children and they're being there for longer, then that would be a violation of the special use that would be typically.
Yeah, no, it's 15 minutes before expiration time, we will call parent that you have only 15, 20 minutes. For us, it's very important. And maximum, again, it's 3 hours for older children.
Could you, I'm sorry, could you define, so 3 hours, so you said 2 hours for what, children under 5?
Yes,
And then, so
And then
6 to 12 is 3.
3, right.
On the diagram you gave us, the floor plan, there are no restrooms on there. Is it just an omission, or
Yes, it's a mission. No, there's
where are-
bathroom.
where are they located?
Покажи мне план.
There's not existing restrooms there, right?
You don't have here plan?
Are you constructing these restrooms, or do they exist?
No, they exist. No, they exist. We don't touch anything.
You have
Покажи. Идем. Здесь, да? In this area.
In the corner there?
Mhm.
Is that just a single restroom? Is that a male, female, or is it just one single one?
just one.
Single. But we don't construct it. It's
And your diagram doesn't indicate a solid wall anywhere in your entrance. Is there a solid wall there?
около.
What blocks off the outside public from your facility?
Yeah, it's solid wall, surely.
So from the front desk, I draw a line right across the,
Gate.
Here will be restricted area with gates. And we already selected this barrier and gates.
and this area here. Anybody else?
Are they using the same door that exists?
Yeah, you're using existing, your outside door is the existing door, right?
Yes.
I was just talking about the differentiation from where the parents would be versus where the activities are going.
But it's enough space for parents. And we will place magazines.
So when you're asking the parents of the 2 or 3-year-olds to stay, are they back in the areas in the back, or are they up front still?
We think it's up front. They will be up front. But surely if, I don't know, if they will insist, we can allow them inside with 2, 3 years old. That's, for us, no problem.
And you've reviewed the conditions that the staff has recommended already, and you're agreeable to those conditions?
Conditions, you mean certificates and,
Conditions for approval that the staff has presented, have you seen those?
yes, surely. You mean memorandum, right?
Yes.
Surely.
I had a question on point number 7 there. I'm not sure what you're expecting from the mall.
Well, since these individuals will, this entity will be basically signing a lease with the mall for an inline space, I think it's important that the mall understands that we have an expectation that they'll be managing their tenant just as much as we'll be keeping an eye on the tenant, and we want to make sure that they're part of that process and are, held accountable as well should they not follow through. And part of that is making sure that they understand the guidelines for procedures, but it's also for, because the mall utilizes their own security staff, making sure that the guidelines for if parents aren't picking up there needs to be understanding what happens then. And is that utilizing a paging system within the mall, for if they can't get a hold of them, there has to be a mechanism in place to make sure that parents are getting a hold of, so that 5 hours later, there isn't a kid here who isn't getting picked up, and now where is the kid going?
So we're looking for the petitioner then, if nobody comes at their 2-hour spot or 3-hour spot, whatever it is, that mall security would become involved?
Well, potentially. I think that's something that needs to be discussed and would need to be just worked out between the mall, the village, and Sophia and Friends. But
Have you discussed that at all with the mall?
Yes, we talked with mall people, and I can tell you, we were very appreciative. They said that we're very excited because we described in details, not like now. We spent maybe 2 hours describing what we will do, and they said we're very excited to have you. And another maybe plus for us, mall will do remodeling, and they will spend over $50,000 for remodeling. So this is trust in our enterprise that they spend so much money, and it will be beautiful. We invite you. You will see. It will be a beautiful place.
And you're signing a lease of how long?
Now, lease for 1 year temporarily. They already cashed our deposit, and they're asking us to pay for, maybe May 1st or June 1st, because they said if they will have approval, they will immediately start remodeling. And we surely participated in design. So we were very surprised that they are putting more than 50,000 on remodeling. Okay, so they see this enterprise as big plus for mall. And otherwise, they will not pay this amount of money for remodeling. And they met, by the way, it's interesting, they met some of our requirements. They want to go with much cheaper, but we said that this our design, and they get along. Mm-hmm. And so we saw this estimate, 55,000 for remodeling.
Are you aware of any DCFS regulations that would apply to your business?
We read. I think we have to be more. If we will need to meet DSF regulations, surely we will be, more attentive. But we know about these regulations. We know.
Anybody else? Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
So for this type of facility, what kind of insurance do you need? What kind of insurance do you need to have?
This is insurance which will be approved by mall.
So the mall's going to insure your
Yeah,
use?
yeah, it will be insurance approved by the mall.
Oh, it'll be approved by the mall?
Yes,
So the mall is going to determine what type of insurance
Yes.
you need
yes,
for the type of use that you have?
absolutely, yes. We talked to them and they said that we have to see insurance and we have to approve it.
And, okay, this is a two-faceted question. Kids are pretty sophisticated after 8 these days. They're pretty independent. So having kids in this facility that are above 8, they know what's going on. And so
Especially with phones.
I would venture to say there wouldn't be too many kids there that are older than 7 or 8. So your wheelhouse is somewhere in 2 to 5, probably, as far as age group. How would you handle kids with special needs, or are you going to allow children with special needs to be dropped off?
That's a loaded question. Uh, First, no, loaded, I said that surely we consider that some kids with special needs. This is employees, quality of our employees. What we have now, already 2 employees. They have extensive training and experience working with kids. We have to, this is why I said a loaded question, that probably we will need to have at least 1 employee who has experience working with kids with special needs. Currently, again, what I think one of employees, she has several certificates, and now in our hiring process, we will be not just very careful, but we will have one employee who, again, is eligible to work with kids with special needs. We'll do it.
Or maybe children with special needs shouldn't be dropped off?
No, we, again, this is a good question, but no, we will make sure we will find person who can take care of kids with special needs.
You
We
know,
will,
in today's day and age, special needs doesn't necessarily have to mean, you know, something very significant. It could be something,
still,
something that you don't know, like maybe the child is autistic, or maybe the child has certain attention issues, something that you might not necessarily notice when you first meet the child. So how do you accommodate that when it manifests itself?
okay. First of all, every parent will be asked about kids, and if parent will say that this is kid with special needs, now it will be special attention. So we will ask every parent, what concerns, and whether we need something special for her or his kid, okay? So it will be questioned, for sure, okay? And if this kid turned out to be with special needs, so it will be on premises at least one qualified person, okay? But we will ask, it's not necessarily with special needs. Some parents maybe say, this kid is, you know, very, maybe not aggressive, but, you know.
Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, maybe. When parents leave their children or check in with their children, are they going to have a form to fill out? Is there going to be a questionnaire
Yes.
that they fill out?
Yes, as I mentioned before, it will be entered to computer, okay? Surely all names and the phone numbers and comments, special comments. And another field will be, we have this questionnaire, another field will be what exactly type of entertainment you want to see. Some kids, again, dancing, some just with books, some with Legos. So we will ask parents what place on these premises will be better for kids.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Nope. All right. On this commission, we have a standing motion to approve the special use to allow this children's, oh, I'm sorry. Anybody from the public, this is a public hearing. Any from the public who wishes to comment at this time? Okay, then we'll adjourn the public portion of this hearing.
How about questions that we can maybe ask internally? Okay, I have a question for commission.
Okay.
So does anybody know how long that other facility was in place? Well, I'm curious. And when was that other facility? 2003?
2003, and I do not believe it lasted longer than a year. I think it was less than a year.
And where was it located? Do you recall? It was by Penny's? Did anybody ever have a child or no children that were there? Okay.
Facility, but there is another facility in the mall that is just a playtime in the mall, and I don't remember the name, but it's geared towards younger kids.
It's on the first floor
Right.
by Penny's,
No, it's
Carson's.
by Carson.
by Carson's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now can I go? All right, we have a standing motion to approve. This motion is subject to conditions as presented to the petitioner of 1 through 11. Any need to add anything else? Okay, we have a standing motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Any comments?
Just a quick one. I think Commission's raised quite a few interesting questions this evening, and I'm not sure we got all the answers that we were looking for. And I think a lot of this is going to rest on the village because we're going to have these conditions of approval, but I think there's a lot of things that probably need to be addressed and need to be looked into to make sure that I think that they're meeting all of their requirements. So I just think this is going to need some, I don't know, special attention, but someone's going to have to really make sure that, they've got all their ducks in a row before this were to move on.
I'd say from the staff perspective, I 100% agree and think there needs to be a lot of additional conversations to have with the mall to make sure that everyone understands the responsibilities that are being asked of not only the mall, but also of the tenant themselves to make sure they understand what requirements are required.
And with that, because I think there's a fair amount of concurrence up here on that, should it be at least offered to the petitioner to continue this hearing for, so that some of those things can get resolved, or would they prefer that we vote on this?
So, do you understand what he was referencing?
You're offered to continue.
So what would happen is, forgive me, is instead of taking a vote on this item this evening, we would continue this meeting to a date to be determined, and that would allow yourselves to have conversations with mall management to help address the questions that were raised this evening. That would allow you time to verify what DCF regulations might be required It would also allow you to understand any type of ADA requirements for servicing individuals with disabilities and how those services might be offered, as well as the skills and training necessary to provide those services, as well as potentially establishing the operations and management criteria that you're going to need in order to effectively operate under what your current proposal was that you expressed this evening.
Okay, so we have to talk to mall management, right? And now, after this hearing, we have to appear again, or?
You would be returning to this commission. And hopefully, you'd be returning this commission with a more detailed and clear representation on how you would handle some of the things that we've questioned tonight.
Okay, and may we have in writing these additional questions, we have to address next time? I understand with special needs, right? Kids with special,
That's one, and the
yeah.
variety of special needs kids. And if you'd be actually wanting or choosing to accommodate special needs children in this facility.
yeah.
Or you can turn around and say, we don't want to handle these types of special needs.
We can't,
We
or we
can't.
shouldn't.
Okay, this is one topic.
And another topic I was actually thinking of adding as a condition
Yeah.
is about the insurance. I think they have to have a better understanding of the type of insurance that they need. Because I think that that's something, I didn't quite understand the answer completely. And I feel that that's something that's very important. If, on a trampoline, if somebody twists an ankle, how is that going to be handled?
My understanding is they don't know what insurance requirement they need, but they're going to do whatever the mall requires them to do.
Well,
But again, it's mall will approve a type of assurance. It's
I would like some
we will offer
understanding.
to mall assurance. We talk to them, and they will approve. So this is not our decision. That's
Well, it's your decision of, they're just approving what you decide on.
right, but they have to approve.
And
Right.
I would like some clarification if this is going to be continued.
What
I would-
kind of assurance, right?
Well, right, what type of insurance, not so much the type, but.
What
you know,
what is included?
What is
what's
it going to cover
included.
you for?
Right.
And how is, and if there is an injury, how is that handled? I know you would contact the parent, but how would that be handled? I want to make sure that if this goes through, that you're covered, for liability as well.
Okay, so type of insurance coverage, special needs.
Protocols for finding parents in the mall, protocols for finding parents who are not responding to your phone calls, protocols for the older children that may be unruly, that can, literally, a 12-year-old boy could overpower somebody and leave. So I think there needs to be more definitive protocols on your relationship with parents, how to find them, how to notify them, how to go get them if need be, things like that.
If phone is not working.
If phone isn't working. Because the phone might not work, it might be, the battery might be dead, they might be preoccupied, they may be in the bar, they may be in the movie theater where their phone is off.
It might be loud.
They might be, outside having a cigarette.
So, Jeff?
It's a question for the village. Do we have, as a village, requirements and guidelines for how, like CDW operates their child care and kinder care operates theirs? I mean, it's very similar, but just because it's in a mall setting, but are there requirements that maybe they should have that those other facilities follow?
So with licensing is all done through the state, and so for licensed daycare facilities, that's how it's done. I mean, one option would be to, classify this as a daycare, which would then obviously require additional approvals, we wouldn't be able to do that this evening, but certainly that'd be something that we could consider.
And they are structuring their business not to be subject to those requirements. Is that not
Well,
true?
the conditions of approval, though, require them to follow all guidelines from DCFS, which basically holds them to the same requirements that daycare would have.
Even though they don't meet the requirements of,
It's just short-term daycare,
yeah.
short-term.
So correct me if I'm
So we'd
wrong,
like you to be able to address what DCFS would require of your facility and how you meet those requirements.
Yeah.
So the question
The-
is whether or not you'd like to move forward with a vote, or if you want to come back and have an opportunity to respond to the question.
Sure. Just frankly, I don't have idea if, can you advise us? Let's be friendly with if cell phone is not working. We have from parents approximately place where we can find them.
I don't know if that's going to be good enough. Maybe, you know, like restaurants have those devices that when your table's ready, your reservation's ready, they give you those things that go off.
We thought about it, but it works on some distance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's one thing, but maybe you need some kind of pager. You know, maybe, you know, you hand out
Special-
pagers to people. There has to be a foolproof way.
Thank you, surely.
There has to be a
We will-
foolproof
o-
way.
Okay, we need pagers.
Something.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it will be in protocol.
But now,
Yeah.
understand one more
Yes.
thing. We're not, this commission, although I respect these people a great deal,
We're not experts.
we are not experts in this. We are trying to assist you in your
Yes.
thought process. And we have just basically informed you that maybe this isn't ready yet to
Okay.
come here for a vote.
Okay. Now, again, I said loaded questions, but they really, because we require drop-off. But if we're asking a parent that this kid with special needs, we will turn him down. We will not let on premises.
I would be very careful being on record stating that you're not going to accept children of a certain,
Yeah, I thought first that it's bad idea not to accept. I thought it's bad idea and to have just somebody who can work with kids with special needs, but alternative that we will not. What do you think? If
there's a
you
motion
could-
that's to approve that was seconded.
Right.
And I guess the question, I guess for the
Well-
commission members is, do you want to continue with the motion and vote on that motion, or do you want to revise the motion from a motion to approve to?
Well, I think
A
that's what
motion
we're asking the petitioner, if he wants us to continue with the voting, or if he wants to postpone it and ask for a continuance.
if it will be negative, surely continue. We don't know your voting what will be, but say if we will vote no, can we continue?
Do you want to poll the commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think I have enough information.
I think probably if you ask us to vote tonight, you're probably going to get a negative response.
Please don't vote. Okay.
I have one more thing. If you are going to come back, if you could show us, like, on the drawing, where the gate is, where the restroom is, because that's missing
Sure.
on this drawing.
Sure, we will
That
do.
would be very helpful.
Yes.
And if there's an area that's going to be for parents, you know, just show us where it
Sure.
is in the drawings.
A more detailed plan.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, we'll do it definitely. So,
So we have a motion on the floor They've
To-
sort of asked it to be withdrawn. Is the second agreeable? Okay. Then we'll have a motion to continue into an indefinite date? Or do we want to?
We don't have a determined date, so what we'll do is, since the public hearing notice was closed, we'll renotice the meeting, and we'll restart the notice procedures and everything else, so it'll be a minimum of 17 days
Okay.
for review.
So, please tell me, first sticking point, it's insurance coverage, right? Very
We can-
important.
Yeah,
You do that. Why don't you do that?
You want to do it afterward?
yeah, we can
He'll talk
discuss
to you after the meeting about what you
Ah, okay.
will
Yeah,
need.
that's probably best.
Okay, so we appreciate your time. Questions were great, and actually you help us. So thank you very much. You help us. It's first time we face commission, and we thought that we thought through everything, but your questions were great. Really, that's important. That how we will handle several of these questions, and what do you think next time you will listen to us?
Well,
You
we'll
will
reach out. I mean, we obviously want to give you an opportunity to respond and provide the correct information or
okay.
in detail. So staff will want to review that with you as well as with the mall going forward. So it likely won't be until sometime in June before we'll have another additional hearing.
June, in the beginning of June, what you say?
I really couldn't say. I mean, we'll have to see the information you provide before we reschedule.
Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your questions. So,
Okay,
Thank
do
you.
Need a motion? then?
Yeah,
Okay, we have a motion to continue.
So move.
so it's a motion to table,
Table?
yeah.
So be it.
So Commissioner Cotton,
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner,
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorog, Chairman Morris, Commissioner Blue. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is case number 18-5, a petition filed by John Wright of Opry Glow Golf LLC, doing business as Glow Golf, looking for a special use permit to operate an entertainment recreation facility known as Glow Golf at Hawthorne Mall. And that's going to be located at 515 Hawthorne Center. Seems in a similar location to where this existing, but this previous business was. Is there a petitioner here? You'll come forward and identify yourself?
Hello, my name is John Wright. I'm with Glow Golf. I'm the operator of Glow Golf. I'd like to thank the commission for allowing us to present our special use application.
The only one going to speak tonight on your behalf?
I am the only one, yes.
Okay, if you raise your right hand.
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you present tonight is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glow Golf is the operation of glow-in-the-dark miniature golf. We also sell a little bit of retail glow-in-the-dark merchandise. We are also an operator of Laser Maze Challenge, which is basically a Mission Impossible type thing. It has a laser beams, you got to crawl around it, race against a clock. Pretty simple and straightforward. We've been in Vernon Hills before, it's been about 6 years ago. We were located in the same location that Dave & Buster's is in right now. So the mall has asked us to come back and start another operation there. So we've presented all the details to staff, and we are a temporary tenant. We are accepting the space as is, no improvements or construction required. Our hours of operation will be the same as the mall. Now, when school's in session, we won't open till 3:30 in the afternoon. We'll close at 9. Saturday 10 to 9, Sunday 11 to 6. Anytime the mall is, or school is out of session, then we will be open all mall hours and all through the summer. So that's kind of basically what we are. It's pretty simple. Entertain any questions that you might have at this point.
What's the minimum age?
Well, the minimum age, we don't allow, well, the minimum age, I mean, we can take 5-year-olds, but they have to be accompanied by an adult.
So unaccompanied by an adult, what's your minimum age?
No one under 13 years of age can be left alone by themselves.
You're the same group that was here before.
We are, same group, yes.
Okay.
We have about 35 of these locations nationwide.
So, and you're going to have a similar operation?
It'll be the same. We've improved it just a little bit,
Okay.
just with quality, but it's exactly the same operation.
Are there restrooms in this space, or are they?
There are restrooms, men and women's restrooms, very nice restrooms.
What was in your space before?
Charming Charlie's, I believe.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yes, uh-huh.
So that's a pretty big, how big is,
Well, the space is around 8,000 square foot total. The usable space we'll be using is going to run about 6,500.
And you said temporary.
We are a temporary tenant, yes.
Okay. So, I guess, what's the definition of a temporary?
Well, we've
tenant?
signed a 1-year license agreement,
Okay.
and if they don't rent the space, we may sign another agreement. It just kind of depends on the mall.
How long were you there last time?
We were there, I think, about 3 years,
I
actually.
was going to say, I thought it was more than a year.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
okay, anything else? This being a public hearing, is anyone from the public care to speak on this issue? Seeing no one, we'll adjourn the public portion of the hearing. And any further questions or comments from the commission? Okay, we have a standing motion to approve. Also, I want to note that the petitioner has filed section 18.3 with the conditions of, to meet the special use permit, and I don't think anybody has any questions on those, as this was an existing business previous in the village. So we will make a motion to approve the special use permit to allow a child's recreation facility to be known as Glow Golf, located in Hawthorne Mall. And the conditions of approval, I assume you've seen those. Those are general.
No, they haven't sent any conditions of approval, or I haven't seen anything that way, anyway.
Okay, I'll read them to you. They're not.
Okay,
The petitioner will use its best efforts to confirm that any sales attributed to the location will be accepted and received in the village of Vernon Hills,
yes,
and compliance with all ordinances and standards of the village.
yes.
All right. We have a motion?
So
Do I have a
moved.
second?
Second.
Good question. I know we do this with other things. We send out letters to adjoining agencies and businesses. Has anyone objected?
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
For the record, with the previous public hearing notice that we just had, no objections were noticed.
Okay.
All right, so we had a motion
Does that go
seconded.
to everybody in the mall then?
Yes. Yeah, every unit number within 250 feet of the,
Yeah, I think 375 feet, actually,
Oh, right.
around the mall,
We're including-
and all tenants as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Hesner,
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone,
Yes.
Commissioner Garag, Chairman Morris, Commissioner Baloo,
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton.
Yes.
Okay. You're approved? Motion
Okay.
approved?
Thank you. So from here, we can do our assembly, and
So the next meeting in front of the village board at the committee of the whole is next week, May 1st.
May 1st,
Will you be able to attend that meeting?
I will.
So we will have you on that agenda under the committee of the whole, where the committee, which is made up of members of the village board, will review the recommendations and findings made this evening, which were unanimously approved. And then at that time, you can move forward with building permits.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is case 18-4, petition filed by the village. pursuant to ordinances, requesting the following amendments to Appendix C of the Code of Ordinances, being the Village Zoning Ordinance 1982, as amended from time to time.
Thank you, and I can give the commission a summary of what staff is requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider. I'm sure most of you are aware by now of different websites such as Airbnb, couch surfing, and certain platforms like that offer short-term rental. And what that does is it allows someone who might own a single-family house in a single-family neighborhood to rent their home for a weekend or a short period of time, and then they would get paid for that. Our zoning code does not permit that kind of use. Under the definition of dwelling, it indicates that lodging houses, hotels, motels, and similar uses are prohibited. Last year, we became aware of a residence that was located in Greg's Landing that was using their house as short-term rental, and it was being advertised and marketed through the Airbnb website. We became aware of it from concerns raised by residents to the police department regarding numerous cars parked on the street. As we looked into it, that's when we learned that the house was being used and advertised on Airbnb. We advised the owners that this use was not permitted, and at their request, they appeared before the board, and this was on October 3rd of last year, for the purpose of discussing the topic and to consider revising the code that would allow short-term rentals. After review and discussion, the board determined that short-term rentals are not appropriate in residential neighborhoods, and this type of use should remain prohibited. As part of this process and looking deeper into the zoning code, what we learned was the code really doesn't have any provisions for any kind of rental, whether it be for the weekend, a week, a month, a year. It really doesn't address it at all. Staff went back to the board to advise them of this, and we suggested that the board consider that we look deeper into long-term rentals. We know they're happening out there in terms of one-year terms. People rent their houses for long periods of time. And the board, after hearing staff's presentation, directed this matter to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing and consideration of a text amendment to the zoning code. And I've put the draft language after the report attached to your packet. And there's two things that we're trying to accomplish here. First, rather than burying the prohibition for short-term rentals under the definition of dwelling unit, we wanted to make it more clear. So we established a definition of short-term rental, which would be for a period of less than 12 months. And we did that in the definition section of the code, 3.2. And then in the home occupation section of the code, 4.7.3, we expressly prohibit short-term rental. I should also note that for short-term rental under the definition, we do not include multifamily buildings or developments held in common ownership, whereby all dwelling units are rented or otherwise let as a single house, single occupancy, and not individually owned. What we're getting at there is a place like the Oaks. The whole development was made to be rented, and part of what they do is, with businesses in Corporate Woods and Continental Executive Park, is they have certain units that are furnished, and you can rent them for a month, a week, 2 weeks, and they market those units that way. Staff believes that's appropriate in a development that's devoted exclusively to rental. So under the definition of short-term rental, it would not apply to those type of uses. It would apply to single-family districts, attached single-family, and multifamily, where the units are individually owned. Short-term rental would not be permitted, and again, short-term rental is less than 12 months. Long-term rental, which is 12 months or longer, would be expressly permitted, and again, that would be in section 4.7.3, which covers home occupations in residential districts. So the specific language, again, is attached to your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Staff is requesting that you consider the text amendment and, based on your findings, make a recommendation to the village board for approval or denial.
Okay, any questions? Don't fight.
Okay, I'll go first. So I just want to be clear on the longer term ones. Because we do have a lot of people who rent their homes in this village. I mean, we just saw a sign tonight. And so you're saying, I want to be clear, that if they rent it for 12 months or more, so they sign a lease for a year or longer, that is legal.
That's correct.
So you could buy a house as an investment property in Vernon Hills and lease it out for over a year at a time. But
That-
anything less than that, you're saying no to.
That's correct.
Except under certain circumstances.
I know, and I get the Oaks thing. I understand that completely. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
And really,
What if it's not the Oaks? What if it's some other rental place in the village?
Well, I guess it would be, I guess that you would apply that to
Emily?
Hamley and, I guess, I don't know. Do we have-
The town center building,
What about these buildings
really.
right down here, just down the street here?
that's correct, off of Westmoreland Drive. There's, all those are part of a development for rental.
Okay, what about developments that have rentals and ownership?
They would not qualify because they're individually owned. So under the definition, we were careful to say, shall not include multifamily buildings or
Like
developments.
River's Edge?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, held in common ownership, whereby all dwelling units are rented or otherwise let as a single occupancy and not individually owned. So, yeah, with River's Edge is an excellent point, because that's a development that's half owned and the other wing is,
Right.
so we would have to, the intent would be, and that, they would not qualify. The way this is written before you right now, to answer your question,
Okay.
the apartment wing of River's Edge would not be able to lease the apartments for a term less than 12 months.
Is that reasonable for an apartment complex?
Well, I'll let the commission discuss it. You know, when I think of I'll let you know my opinion, though. When you think of the Oaks or Amley or something like that, it's reasonable to allow them to rent under whatever terms they want. River's Edge is pretty unique. It's basically half individually owned and half apartment rented. I would suggest in that situation, it's appropriate to hold them to a minimum of a year for the apartment wing, given the concerns we've heard from the owners in the ownership wing.
Well, and it gets a little bit more complicated than that, too, because even in the ownership segment of the development, there are owners that own more than one unit, and they rent out those units. So those units would have to be rented out for a year or more.
To comply with the zoning code, the language before you tonight, that's correct.
Because you remember hearing that.
Right.
There's
a certain
someone
percentage.
that owns like multiple units, and they lease those out. So the terms of that would be greater defined.
It would be
And you don't-
expressly permitted, whereas right now, the zoning code doesn't allow rental. I mean, it doesn't address rental.
So do you know what the rental terms are on those buildings?
You know, I couldn't tell you, every rental term, and I'm not sure we'd have the ability to get that information and assemble it. I think it's reasonable to assume that most rental terms, if your intent is to stay there, is good, for a year or longer, is that they tend to be signed in one-year terms.
I mean, does something like this prohibit and discourage people from investing in property? Because if you're investing in, owning a townhome or another attached single family or something like that, and you can't find a tenant that is willing to go for more than a year, are we actually discouraging investment in property by prohibiting, less than a year?
I don't know if you'd be discouraging it. You would to agree, but, there has to be some kind of limit. I mean, there has to be some kind of criteria established. So it's obvious that what staff's trying to do is determine what that water level is.
Like you mentioned Airbnb. I mean, that's a huge. There's other models out there where if you wanted to, it's basically a vacation exchange where you could rent a house in Vernon Hills if you needed to for a week and then, as your vacation. I don't know how often that would actually occur here, but this
then
would be
maybe-
prohibiting that.
Maybe what they'd have to do is go to a place that does allow that, like the Oaks, maybe that's what they would be directed, or if they came to the village and asked a question, are there places like this within this jurisdictional area? And then the village could say, there are. And they could maybe show them or lead them in that direction.
I mean, other than the one incident where someone did complain about cars, have there been others where people have
Well,
complained about their neighbors
I guess-
renting their property?
I guess maybe I want to expand on that. What was the concern that you heard at the village board level?
Well, the concern that we heard was that the people that would be living in the house for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks are more transient in nature, and that's not, from a zoning perspective, what's intended for a single family, or for a residential district. That's more appropriate for a B1 district with a special use where you have a hotel or a lodging house or something along those, so it was the transient nature of that use that raised their level of concern.
Even
You know,
with
and
the B&B phenomenon going on?
Yeah, yes, even with that, if you could, most people, you live in your house, you live there for a number of years, and
Right.
you know who your neighbors are, and then all of a sudden, this one house next to you or across the street's getting rented out 1 or 2 weekends a month, and you don't know who you're going to be living next to from one weekend to the next. I mean, that dynamic really changes, I think, what our expectations are for the residential neighborhood that we live in, and I think, I think that's part of the concern that the board had.
I mean, how is the village actually going to police this? Because you'd have to check Airbnb every day.
Well, we were able to, it's difficult to police, you're exactly right. We were able to identify 16 properties, but you can't, they don't really give the address unless you sign up for the property. So in some cases, we were able to see a picture of the house and the address on the house, and we were able to follow it that way. But your point is well taken. It's difficult to police. We do it to the best, to the extent that we can, but it's difficult to do so.
I have one concern about the year length. And I say this because my former residence, the house across the street was a transient house. And it was owned by a corporation, and they would move guys in for like 9 to 10 month periods. Usually they'd show up in August. Then they would work, and they'd have families with school children, work the school year, and then send them back to wherever, whence they came. I mean, they were here for 9, 10, 10-month periods. And I can see that, if it's a family with 4 kids, we put them all in school and everything. A place like Amley or the Oaks, it's obviously, it wouldn't work for somebody in that situation. So I guess that's where I would be hesitant about the year, the full year. Just,
It's good.
Yeah, it's a good point. They would have to go to like an Amley or the Oaks. I'm just thinking aloud right now, so bear with me here. But if I'm thinking my kids need to be in school for the year, I'm thinking something close to a year term lease. But I guess you don't necessarily have to do that. It's probably more like 9 months or 10 months.
that's kind of that's kind of how they did this. And I can tell you, they went through 3 or 4 different families, and there was a minimum of 3 kids. It was a 4-bedroom house, so I mean, it was set up specifically for situations like this. Now, it could go a year at a time, and there was nobody in there, because it was obvious that they had set this up for when they had to move a family.
Sure. Well, I sit here listening to the commission, and we'll accept your direction on where you draw that line. Should it be at 12 months? Should it be at 10 or 9 months? I can tell you the direction from the board was to clearly differentiate between short-term and long-term rental, and then to continue to prohibit short-term rental. Everyone was in agreement that certainly we want to allow long-term rental. Where we draw that line is an interesting discussion, and we await your direction.
I have one comment on the definitions.
Yes.
In the long-term rental definition, it's a question first. Is single housekeeping unit a legal term?
Yeah, it comes from the definition of family. So we want to make sure and then when you look under the definition of family, it'll say one kitchen, and they describe one housekeeping unit.
So can that single housekeeping unit be all-encompassing for not only single-family home, but townhome, duplex, condominium?
Yes. And single housekeeping unit means you don't rent a unit and then sublet each bedroom to someone else as well. That wouldn't be a single housekeeping unit. So it's actually very strategic, that terminology.
I have, and this is kind of picky, so I'm apologizing ahead of time, but there are cases where the owner might not be present in the house for a year or whatever, but their family still is. So I think we might want to, in the definition, owner or family, or owner's family, just because you might have the owner that's in Florida for 9 months out of the year, but the family is still here.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Again, I know that's very picky, but
It's a good point. Thank you.
that's all I had on this.
Anything else?
So currently in the village, we don't restrict apartment developers on their lease terms.
Oh, we do not. No. They could do a 1, 2, or 3 month term on their lease. They could do a year term, but we don't specifically regulate it for developments that are made just for rental. When the Oaks came through, we were aware of how they were going to market certain apartments. They were going to furnish it and market it to businesses in Continental Executive Park and Corporate Woods, and it made perfect sense to us based on that kind of development. And it would make perfect sense in our mind too, for Amley and those types of developments.
And can you please clarify for me, because I'm confusing myself. So an apartment, a person who has leased an apartment is not considered an owner of that apartment. And they cannot offer a short-term lease, like an Airbnb, of their apartment.
That's correct. A sublease?
Yeah, for like a weekend.
That's correct.
They cannot do that.
They cannot.
An apartment dweller cannot do that.
That's correct. It would be a sublease and would not comply with the provisions that are before you.
Okay, so basically, blanket across the board, there are no, the village will not allow for Airbnb type of vacation rentals or whatever.
Yeah, the village was pretty clear that the board was clear that they did not want to allow that, and the people that were notified that they couldn't use their house for Airbnb were given an opportunity to go before the board and talk about the topic, and they asked for the board to reconsider the prohibition, but the board was unanimous in not wanting to allow short-term rental, such as those marketed on Airbnb.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I can watch the tape, but what were some of the reasons for not wanting to allow short-term rentals?
The transient nature of the use becomes different. It becomes more transient, and the dynamic of a house where people are moving in and out on a weekend basis or a weekly basis is certainly has a different impact on a neighborhood than someone that's there more longer term, like for a year or so. You don't know who you're going to live next. You don't know who you're going to be next door to or across the street from, and those kinds of concerns is what were raised.
Commissioner Hessner just brought something up. So if someone is renting from an Amley and wants to sublet, I'm thinking maybe a student from, Trinity or whatever, and wants to sublet their apartment, is that allowed then?
From Amley?
From an Amley, yes.
Yeah, from an Amley or the Oaks or a place that, a development that's exclusively a rental development, that would be permitted then.
Okay.
Maybe I just didn't hear your question right. Did you ask if the tenant could or Amley could?
If the tenant could sublet
Is that what you were answering?
Yeah, there's
Have
two,
family.
there's two questions I answered.
Right.
Let's say you're a tenant of a attached dwelling unit in New Century where the units are individually owned, but you're renting it from one of the owners. And now you want to move out after 6 months but sublet your lease. You couldn't do that. If you were in the same situation but you were in Amley or in the Oaks, you could do that because the definition of short-term rental would exclude those types of uses.
I, as the tenant in the apartment, could sublease.
In the apartment at Amley,
Yes.
yes, you could. In terms of the zoning code and the provisions that are before you, what are the terms of the lease agreement between Amley and the tenant? That's whatever that is.
Right.
My guess is Amley might not like that.
Yeah, and I would guess I think you're right, and I would
think
guess
you would.
they've got that covered in their lease.
I would think they'd have that covered in their
But to answer your question, in the context of the zoning provisions that are before you, the language, it would not prohibit that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Any more questions? Okay. Anything from the public? Hearing nothing. Close the public hearing. So we have. Need to write up a motion on that one. We have a standing motion to approve.
We do?
What?
Well, I think,
Yeah, I don't think we're voting on anything.
Oh, you're just,
We're making.
yeah, you're making a recommendation, so it'd be a motion to recommend approval
Yeah.
or a motion to recommend denial, either, whatever.
Okay.
it's a public hearing. It's not a
right.
discussion.
So the, on page 2 of the packet has the list of text amendments that are being asked, so those are the items that you'd be voting on. Is the recommendation to make the following text amendments to Article 3, Section 3.2, definitions, as outlined in your packet, as well as amending Article 4, Sections 4.7.3,
15 and 16.
15, and 16, correct, as identified in your packet.
Is there any reason we need to separate any of this? Okay,
Probably not.
so we have a motion to approve the amendments as requested. Any second? We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Yeah, I think the definition of multifamily needs to be better defined. You know, is it a townhome building? Is it row home building? Is it, you know, what is the definition of multifamily? Because someone from multifamily might consider, you know, a duplex, that could be considered multifamily. So how do you define all the variations of residential housing?
Well, and that's why I asked about the term single housekeeping unit. Evidently, it's an encompassing term.
But in a townhome, you might have someone owns a townhome, but it's two couples or two friends, and that becomes two entities instead of single, but they're in one building.
They just won't tell.
Right.
That's covered under, that's still a single housekeeping unit, and you're living with, you know, maybe you you rent a house with you and your buddy, or, you know, for 12 months. It's still a single housekeeping unit. And under the definition of family, that's where it indicates a single housekeeping unit. And it also says up to 4 people unrelated by blood or marriage.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, actually, but it is covered under the definition of family.
I think it's just going to be up to the individuals to research what single housekeeping unit means.
I mean, I think for this affecting, on a percentage basis of homes in the community, this is probably less than 0.25% that this could actually affect, so. For things that are, you know, brought to light or policed, I mean, it'd be very difficult to figure this out. Who's doing it, who's not.
Yeah, we're, you know, I mean, we don't look at leases or drive around looking for signs of leases that don't comply, but if there was a property in the future where someone called to say, hey, across the street, there's a new family every weekend in there, we would have the provisions in the code to clearly enforce that requirement and be able to follow up on behalf of that resident.
Do you did we want to make a change for what you commented on earlier about the,
I think it's probably so rare.
no, I'm thinking Commissioner Cotton. When she made the owner versus
So owner or
owner's family, yeah.
I think you had written it down when I wrote it, so.
Yeah, I did, and I'll double check the definition of family. I think we've got that covered, and if we don't, I'll make sure that it's clear in the definition as requested.
Okay,
Good.
guess we're ready for call.
Okay. Commissioner Heidner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulchrone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grog, Chairman Morris, Commissioner Blue,
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton,
Yes?
Commissioner Hesner.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, development review items. We have, staff is still reviewing the proposed kindergarten center addition. As you may have heard, there's, they went out to bid, and the bid amounts were higher than what was anticipated. So they are reviewing those numbers and are making a determination on their next steps. So insofar as a public hearing will be scheduled, that is temporarily on hold until we determine how they're moving forward, and then we'll schedule that as soon as we can. Likely, it would be end of May at the earliest. At this point, it's hard to say, but
How did the meeting go with the Victory Center?
that meeting would be not favorable, would be the best way to describe it. It was a packed house of probably over 50 people, many of whom expressed concerns about the change and the impact of vehicle traffic traveling on Phillip Road across from their property. Some had very strong concerns about whether or not public safety apparatus could access their building if that particular road was being trafficked by other cars. There's also concerns about noise from the kindergarten center, as well as emissions from the vehicles that may be stacking along the proposed roadway adjacent to the property, and whether or not those fumes would impact their quality of life and standard of living and all that. So we've had a number of, we've tried to continue to engage in dialogue with them. Another proposal we have is to relocate the access to the south of the building. We do have easement rights to travel through their parking lot on the south end of their building. So that's a potential connection that we could pursue that would save money and would also avoid us traveling across their main entranceway. And so that's an option that we're pursuing. But currently, we're looking to try to schedule a second meeting with them to kind of just review the secondary proposal and make sure that we can, as best we can, best as possible, address their concerns. I know they've spoken to the fire chief from Countryside a number of times. Countryside is not concerned about being able to access their building. They feel very confident they can do so, regardless of the traffic conditions that might exist on the roadway, because of the multiple points of entry and access that they have currently. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. But I do anticipate a large number of individuals who will wish to speak or address their concerns at a future commission date. Other items, the Goddard School is looking to expand into the American Charter Bank building. We have not yet received documents for technical review, but we anticipate receiving that sometime shortly. Essentially, what that will be including is the creation of three additional classrooms, a enclosed walkway between the two buildings, as well as a 900 square foot addition that would be attached between the two properties that would be used for some sort of like gym or play space. So that would require a special use and amendment to the Aspen Point planned unit development. Otherwise, we're still waiting for technical review for a proposed Dunkin' Donuts to the south of McAllister's Deli. As you might recall, McAllister's Deli was approved with an outlot, or not an outlot, a vacant building space immediately to the south. It's remained vacant, but they're proposing Dunkin' Donuts with a drive-through as well at that location. McAllister's was also approved for a drive-through, however, that's for pickup only for online orders. And so, at the concept review, the board felt comfortable having a true drive-through installed, provided that they were the only true drive-through that was really operating in that capacity. Otherwise,
Versus the pickup
Correct.
only of that.
Correct.
Okay.
so if you accidentally drive through the window just to pick up but need to order, they'll probably come. But otherwise, that's it for development review items.
Okay. We do have minutes of February 28th and March 7th. Any issues with any of those?
You can vote either way. You
But-
can,
It doesn't have a date. The March 7th, there is a typo on the second page, right at the bottom of the page. It says the public hearing, it should read public hearing portion was closed for comment.
thank you.
It's in the C.
The problem with caps lock, it doesn't tell you if you're in a spelling.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
Second.
and we could do that by a voice vote.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. And that's it, right? No discussion?
Unless you want to discuss.
Okay, I'll have a motion to adjourn. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you all.